United in this place of prayer, each individual soul joined in a community of worship. One God.
Praise God. We bear witness that there is no God except the one God. There is no other gods or idols besides Him. In the last khutbah, we reached the conclusion that you do not really believe in God unless you know that He is doing everything. You make the initial decision. This is our role. We make a decision to be with God or not. And not means you be with Satan, because there is no other choice. You're either with God or with Satan. And this is the decision we have, where we have absolute freedom of choice. After that, you're either guided by God or messed up by Satan. But the ultimate doer of everything is God. And everything is happening in accordance with God's will. I want today to compare our priorities. I just remembered an idea. I have to write it down so I don't forget. I want to use the board here to illustrate something about priorities. Most people do not know who they are. We recognize now the human being as consisting of two entities. Just to make it very simple, the body and the soul. Okay. The body goes on for, let's be optimistic, about 100 years. And then it dies, becomes nothing. The soul is the real person, the real you. This is the real person right here. And it goes on for eternity. The body has requirements, and the soul has requirements. The body, now what I want to compare here is what we do for this entity and what we do for this entity. For this entity, people start with the infant. The infant is given milk and nourished, given shots, painful shots, and growing pains, and teething. And then they go to school. The body goes to school. You know, you have to go to school, right? If you want to be, there's a commercial on the radio and TV now by, what is the name of that comic cat? Garfield. He said, if you want to be a fat cat, go to school. Go to college, I think he said. So you go to school and you take tests and go through the homeworks and the absence reports and chastising from the parents and the teachers and working very hard studying. You know, school is not popular with most of us. You go through grade school, junior high school, then you go to high school and all the hard work involved in it, and you're so glad to graduate only to go into college. Then you're a freshman and you study very hard and work and you're very busy, you know, devoting a lot of effort and time and money to go to school. Because, why? Because this body, you want it to dress nicely, you have good clothes, and you want to buy a house, preferably in the foothills, with so many rooms and luxuries and carpets and drapes. This body wants that. and you work hard for that. You graduate from college and you apply for jobs. You go to the placement office and you stand in line for the interviewer, the people who interview you, and you are very polite to be interviewed. You want to be bright. You want to pretend to be bright. And you want to put on your best appearance and some sense of humor and intelligence, abilities. You know, you pretend to be perfect for the interview, and you get the job. And then you do a lousy job and you're fired. Then you're applying for other jobs and you're miserable. You know, all this is for the body, because the body wants clothes, housing, food. And we do all this work for the body. Now, what are they doing for the soul? The average person. Now, this is the real person. Now, after all this, the body dies, goes to dust, comes nothing. There was a person, this body would belong to a person called Rock Hudson. Remember that name? Rock Hudson. Okay, he died recently. This is why you still remember him. And Rock Hudson was a very successful person. Lots of money, fame, covers, magazine covers, on the front covers, TV, movies, wealth, Beverly Hills mansion. His body had a lot of fun. And he also broke God's law, as we know, and he died in humiliation. Now the real person, Rock Hudson, does exist. The real person. What did he do for this body, and what did he do for this? What did the fame and money and bring him? What was the value of the fame and the money that he accumulated? Remember George Liberace? The glitter, the suits that he was wearing, and the showmanship and the clapping, the people clapping for him, the performances he gave, and how many millions of dollars he made. But how much does he, the real person, have? At the end, the mortician was afraid to touch him because of the virus, AIDS virus. Rockefeller, any of them. So the body, people work very hard for this entity here. And what do they do for the soul? This is the question. What I'm trying to bring out is rearranging our priorities, or putting our priorities in perspective. What are we doing for the soul? What does the soul need? The soul needs worshiping God alone. This is the first step, because the soul is part of God in any way you want to look at it, because God said, I blew into Adam from my spirit. So the soul needs to worship God alone, and then it needs food, nutrition. The 5 daily meals, the 5 prayers are needed. You need fasting. People like Rock Hudson, for example, he put himself in the service of this body. He was serving this body. Whatever the body wants, he gave it. But he neglected himself. And if the soul was this size when he started, it is still this size now. Didn't grow, he didn't feed his soul. His priorities were mixed up. I'm using a real person as an example, because here's a person who attained fame and fortune. The conclusion from this is that anything that we do that is not developing our soul is a waste of time. If you do anything that has nothing to do with God, it's a waste of time. So when you wake up in the morning, until the end of the day, you ask yourself, am I doing this for God? Which is another word for feeding your soul. Because anything you do for God causes your soul to grow and develop. It is actually for yourself, for the real entity. So we have to rearrange our priorities, put them in perspective, How much of the day are you doing for the body and how much are you doing for you? You went to school and suffered through examinations to have a good job. What did you do for you? By the way, the 100 years compared to infinity is 0. So this is the proportion that you should do for yourself and for your body. You should do 0 for your body. And you should do 100% for you. It is not intelligent otherwise. Because this is 0. It's going to be nothing. So you have to put this in the service of you and not the other way around. Almost everybody out there has the priorities reversed. They put this in the service of a vanishing garment. توبوا إلى الله, repent. تبت إلى الله, رجعت إلى الله, وندمت على ما فعلت. اللهم اغفر لي وارحمني بما تب علي يا رب العالمين. الحمد لله وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. From this diagram, I want to move on to comparing the believer, a Muslim, one who submitted to God, and a regular person. I was looking out the window the other day. I prayed my morning prayer, and about an hour later, one of my neighbors, I was looking out the window and I saw the neighbor coming out, and he was obviously very sleepy. His hair was all messed up, and you can imagine he just got up, you know. He's walking like this, can hardly walk. He's young, I mean, he's not old. His clothes are a mess, and he was out to get the newspaper. Now, a Muslim wakes up in the morning, the first thing he says or she says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, La ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah. The first thing a person says. Remember, we pledged this in one of the khutbahs. The first thing you get, I hope you didn't forget. We do forget once in a while. But the first thing when you get up in the morning, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of God, La ilaha illallah, wahdahu la sharika lah. Because this is what you will do when you get up on the day of resurrection. Whatever you say every morning. And I have to repeat what the most people say when they get up in the morning and they look in the clock and it is Osh. And that's what they will say. That's exactly what they say on the day of judgment when they get up in the morning. Osh. Because usually they are up late, you know, they get up, they turn the alarm off and go back to sleep. And then when they get up next time, it's too late and they utter the 4-letter words. So the Muslim gets up in the morning, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. When you get up on the day of resurrection, if this is a habit here, it's going to be a habit also on the day of judgment. God will see to it. God will help you. And there is no place to go to when you get up on the day of resurrection saying Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. There's only one God. There's no place to go but heaven on the day of resurrection. So this is what the Muslim does. Now, what did my neighbor do when he got up in the morning? Looking for the paper. God is not on his mind. Just like the average person. I hope God was on his mind, but it didn't look like it. And then the Muslim goes to do his ablution or her ablution. So you go and do ablution in the morning and you pray the morning. This is the first thing you do. And this act of ablution and the morning prayer is very refreshing. You're alert, you look nice, you washed your face, you combed your hair. You will not look like this guy. I mean, he really looked terrible. You only see that in the movies. Somebody just got up out of bed, you know. The Muslim commemorates God in every chance he or she gets. The Muslim sees the sun rise and says, Subhanallah. So all these are nutritions for the soul, for you, the real person. And your soul grows when you say, Subhanallah, glory be to God, as you see the sun rising. Because you're always conscious of God. The sun is rising exactly at the precise second and from the same spot that it is supposed to, without delay. And God committed that sun in your service. And you say, Subhanallah. You look at a flower and you do the same thing. Then you make a telephone call to one of your friends or associate and you say, tomorrow I'm going to do this and that, inshallah, God willing. There's a certain behavior of the person who has submitted to God, because you know that God is doing everything, and you know that you will do this and that tomorrow only because God wills. But God will do that. And the Quran gives you this very, very clear commandment. And then your kids get up and you admire them and you say, MashaAllah, this is God's giving to you. This is God's will that you have these children. And you thank God. Now the non-Muslim is unaware. God is not in his or her mind at all. And they are neglecting the real person, themselves, neglecting themselves. They'll be very careful to have breakfast. But they will not give breakfast to their soul. So you are living 24 hours a day, you are commemorating your Creator. And your Creator doesn't need that. God doesn't need any of our praise or our worship. We do. So you are being prepared for the eternal life, which is coming. You don't see anybody around who's 200 years old, do you? You haven't heard of anyone. It's coming, the day of resurrection. And then you'll be assigned that eternal rank, depending on the spot where you qualify, how much growth you did. So far I talked about rearranging the priorities, or putting the priorities in perspective, and how much time we devote to your soul, how much time, the real person, and how much time you give to your job and your boss and your family and so on. Strictly, you can give time to your family in the cause of God. Our priorities must be in perspective. This is why you are here, for the Friday prayer. You dropped all business and you are here for the Friday prayer. This is the correct priority. Anytime you are not here on Friday, you're out of God's grace. It's a commandment for every Friday. You drop all business and you go to the Friday prayer. And God associates this with business and profit. And God says it is better for you to drop business. Because God runs the world, God is doing everything. And when you drop your business and go to the Friday prayer as God commands you to, God will see to it that you make more money, more profit. And you don't care, but it will come. Rearranging or putting our priorities in perspective. I'm going to read a couple of verses from the Quran that deal with this subject of priorities. In Surah 18, starting at verse 45, it says, "Cite for them, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge in God from Satan. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God." It says, cite for them the example of this world, like sending water from the sky that causes plants to grow on the earth and then turns to hay, blown away by the wind. This is this world. This is the example of this world in verse 45 of Surah 18. The plant grows, it is strong. You see all those flowers out there? They're very nice. Watch them. They're going to turn into dry, something like hay, and they blow away. In fact, the time will come and you will say, want to remove the stuff from here. It's going to be dry and shriveled. And this is how this world is. The next verse, it says that money and children are the beauty of this life, or the adornments of this life. This is what are the good things of this life. Money and children. In Arabic, al-mal wal-banuna zinatul hayat ad-dunya. And I've heard many people, they say, God says that money and children are the adornment of this life. I have lots of children. Where is the money? So, but generally, money and children are adorning, are the beauties or the adornment of this life. And then the rest of the verse says, however, the eternal righteous works, or baqiyatu salihat in Arabic, that the righteous works that last forever, we're talking about the real person here, are far better for you. So money and children and properties in this world, they are the good things in this life. And God tells us what is better than that. Like I mentioned in the last khutbah, worshiping God alone and nourishing your real person, the Quran says, is much better than owning everything on this earth and twice as much. All the real estate in Vancouver and New York, all the real estate in the whole world, all the oil, the gold, the diamonds, believing in God alone and feeding, nourishing your real person is much better when you have the right perspective, is much better than owning everything on earth and twice as much. So this verse 46 of Surah 18 says, money and children are the beauties or the good things of this world, but the righteous works that last forever are far better and provide better hope. وَخَيْرٌ أَمَلًا. The end of the verse is خَيْرٌ أَمَلًا. There is better hope in them. If there is no hope in the properties, Rock Hudson was very famous and very rich. George Liberati's mansion, still you can go as a tourist and look at it. But he's not there. Because there is something better that he could have acquired. That is righteous works. And developing his soul in order to withstand life next to God in the hereafter. If he didn't develop his soul, he will not stand being close to God. And the verse 47 says, because the day will come when we remove the mountains and you see the earth barren, everything will go. And then we will gather every single one. The Arabic says, فَلَمْ نُغَادِرْ مِنْهُمْ أَحَدًا. We will not leave a single person. God says we're going to gather everybody for this reckoning. How much did you do for this vanishing garment? How much did you do for yourself? The reckoning is going to be automatic. But every single one will come to account. The next verses go on and describe why the righteous works and feeding your soul is the number one priority. That when you do anything else, it's a waste of time. Anything else that does not develop your soul is a waste of time. And missing a Friday prayer, I'm missing this because you're all here. When you miss a Friday prayer for any reason, it's a terrible, terrible loss. Because being once a week a congregational prayer where you meet your brothers and sisters, and it's a commandment from God to do this. When you miss it, you miss a lot. I mean, I cannot put it in billions of dollars. We have to we always remember the right perspective. And the advice in Quran is to commemorate God 24 hours a day. Every chance you get, you can turn your work into worship. Yeah, you can take the mail from the fellow. Open it. He has a express mail thing. And I need it. Bring it. These are papers that I need. It's 1 o'clock, so I'm going to read some material, and it's some kind of a quiz. I want you to find out, to think where it is from, okay? Every addition or omission of a word or even of a single letter from the sacred text of the prayers destroys the religious meaning of the prayer as a whole and is to be regarded as a grave sin, a sin which could result in eternal exile for those who commit it. Remember, there are certain statements in the Quran that says, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ, woe to those who are doing their prayer. I mean, those are people who are doing their prayer, but they end up in the negative because they are heedless of their prayers or because there are other reasons. So you must make sure that your prayer is perfect, your salat, your contact. I'm not talking about supplications. I'm talking about your contact prayers. It is a recognized statement in Quran, وَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ, woe to those who are doing their salat prayer, الَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنْ صَلَاتِهِمْ سَهُونَ, who are heedless of their prayers. They are not aware or they are neglecting something. Let me read this again. And I wanted to apply it to our contact prayer here. See, Barry is visiting us for the first time and he will wonder, why do we do the prayer in Arabic? And why this particular prayer, for example? And all of us ask this question. In fact, it's going to come up. So let me read this again. Every addition or omission of a word or even a single letter. Now, we in this mosque fully appreciate the mathematical composition of everything that's connected with our worships, the Quran, and even the bones in our body and everything else. So we should appreciate what is written here. Every addition or omission of a word or even of a single letter from the sacred text. Al-Fatiha is the sacred text that God gave us. The first surah of Quran. We cannot add anything to it. As you know, Satan succeeded everywhere in the Muslim world. They add the word Ameen. And our people in Washington, D.C. have a radio program, and I have one of the tapes here talking about this Ameen. And they got it from the dictionary, some recognized dictionary, and they read what Ameen is. Turns out to be an old Hebrew, Greek, something word that has nothing to do with Arabic. It is not in the Quran. But here, this is why Satan tricked the people into adding it. Every addition or omission of a word or even a single letter from the sacred text of the prayers destroys the religious meaning of the prayer as a whole and is to be regarded as a grave sin. So here's a person doing the prayer, committing a grave sin. Okay, let me go to another section. As I go, you will guess what I'm reading from. He and his disciples evolved a mystical theory, according to which the words and letters of the various prayers are not accidental, nor are they only vehicles for their literal meaning. I mean, اهدنا الصراط المستقيم, guide us in the right path. It's wonderful. But we are not saying the contact prayer for this literal meaning. There is much more to it. So listen to this. Nor are they only vehicles for their literal meaning. Their order, and especially their numbers, we certainly appreciate that, reflect a mystical harmony, a sacred divine rhythm. Next. No change can be tolerated in the text of the prayers, not even a minute one, because every change, even of one letter, would destroy the numerical harmony inherent in the text. So every letter that God composed in the first surah of Quran, Al-Fatiha, is numerically controlled. The sounds, when you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, this is composed by God for a specific reason, a combination that causes your contact with your Creator. So listen, it's coming up. It does not matter, therefore, whether the change is beneficial from the point of view of meaning and content. I mean, you may think of composing a Shakespearean, excellent, literary marvel that praises God. It doesn't mean a thing. Forget it. It is not the meaning we're after. It's the numerical composition and the sounds. For this level of meaning is not the most important one in the prayers. The text was formed by God, I'm adding this by God, to reflect mystical harmony, and any change would destroy it. The second point here is the liturgy, that is the contact prayers, Al-Fatiha. The liturgy received new importance and new meaning within the framework of religious practice after discovering the numerical importance of it. A completely new dimension was added in this way to the daily prayer service. It stopped being just a reciting of requests and praises of God in ancient formulas, Arabic, for example, and became a vehicle for becoming a participant in a mystical divine harmony. The prayers suddenly received a new depth of meaning and importance, which was undreamed of in the 1,000 years that had passed since they were formulated. Next. Okay, this will really tell you what this is coming from. The quiz becomes easier and easier. The fierce polemical tone of Rabbi Judah's criticism of the changes introduced by the Frenchmen in the prayers can therefore be explained as a result of his fear that the prayers may be regarded as completely human in origin and meaning, making them secular and meaningless in religious and mystical practices. A lot of people accuse me of being harsh with some people who are making changes in the prayers or in the Quran or in the practices of religion. But there is a precedent. It is fear for these people, and it is concern for them. According to him, even if the content and meaning of the prayer is religious, expressing love and devotion to God, it still will be just, quote, a secular song like that of the non-Jews, if it does not have the added mystical dimension of hidden truth, which cannot be revealed by the literal meaning of the words alone. In his polemic, Rabbi Judah does not defend only the specific tradition of prayer which he received from his parents and teachers. He also defends prayer as an elevating force, forming a salat, a connection between man and God, a connection that no mere words can achieve. So it is not just the words, there is a numerical mysticism in it. And the last section, all God-fearing people, when they pray, have to direct their prayers. When they say, blessed is God, alhamdulillah, when they say, quote unquote, blessed is God, and when they kneel before him and thank him and direct their prayers in their hearts only to his holiness alone, within which is his glory and which has neither form nor image. We direct it to God alone. أقم الصلاة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.